He is His Holiness Bhaktimarga Swami Maharaj. You know, he's very lovingly also called the walking monk. Yes, he's called the walking monk. And why is he called the walking monk? Because he is a marathon walker. Please don't look at him like that and say, oh, this man looks 60, 70 years old. Well, he is actually 70 years old. He has got both his knees replaced. Yet, he's a marathon walker. He's a walking monk because he has walked across Canada. He walks coast to coast, town to village, and from east to the west. He has walked across Canada, which is the second largest country. It's not a big deal. So he walked across Canada once, then he walked across Canada twice, thrice, 4 times. And that's not the end of the story. He has also walked across USA, Israel, Fiji Island, Mauritius, Trinidad, Guyana, and I think Ireland. So many of these countries he has really walked across. A lot of people ask us, why so much of walking? What helps in walking? So one, of course, walking is to inspire the greener way of life. Second, it promotes pilgrimage. And then he meets and makes friends, raise friends, inspire people. You, each one of you, are very, very fortunate. And each one of you have taken that extra step to come to the temple. But a lot and millions of people out there, they just don't know about Krishna. They don't know about anything. And when he walks across, people say, hey! And he has those funny stories, let me tell you. His tales from the trails are top-line transcendental. And if you ask him those tales, we can go on forever, and I'm sure your bosses will not be happy because you won't be able to make it up tomorrow, because those stories and those tales can go forever, and they're so transcendental. I've seen myself when I walk with him, most of the time I try to catch up with him because his speed, sway, and swift is so fast that I can just not match up. So he's a walking monk, but just not a walking monk. You've also seen him as a monk, as a temple. You know, he was a temple president once, and then now, of course, he's the GBC of Iskcon Canada, and that also makes him travel to Alaska. Just tomorrow, he's traveling to Alaska, and he's been a monk for the last 5 decades. He's absolutely just in case I've known, sometimes people give me a call and they say, Maharaj is doing Kirtan tomorrow? And I say, yes, even if he's not doing it, because if I say yes, they're going to turn up to temple. He's known for his Kirtans. He's an artistic director. We just talked about the play called Demon. He's the one who directed that. The Iskcon classics like The Boatman, Big Fish, Little Fish, and The Age of Kali, all these Iskcon classics have been directed by them. We directed a short play, a short film here called The Embassy that has recently received the film festival at Calcutta. And that is also been directed by him. He's a poet as well. He has a dossier of 80 poems that he's written. As I always say, one person who has so many arrows in his quiver, being a monk, being a walking marathon, a walker, a poet, director, and definitely one person who is so humble. One thing that a lot of devotees don't know, and that I generally don't share, but I think with this group of audience, since we're sitting here, amidst Sri Radha Kirtan Gopinath, I would like to share, Maharaj is super organized. Sometimes you would see him at 11 p.m. in Kamcha, coming in and cleaning the temple. Coming in, I see him cleaning the temple. There are volunteers, there is professional cleaning staff that we have. Bhakti Academy, we have so many people, they can just do those small things. But he's there and he wants to make sure everything is prim and proper. Oh, and I'm going to just drink my introduction to him and hand it over to His Holiness Bhaktimarga Swami Maharaj. So are you ready to hear him? Yes or no? Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Balabalari. Balabalari goes by different names. One of them is Lovable Hari and also Mr. Overkill. We're going to sing a song that Prabhupada traditionally would sing
is we'll just engage in japa mantra meditation. It'll take 3 minutes. Most of you know the mantra. Usually we have a display board here with the Maha mantra on. It's missing for some reason. But anyways, I'll repeat after me. You already chanted. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. 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 Hare Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama. Hare. If you have your japa meditational beads with you, you can utilize them right now. And we'll just chant for 3 minutes only, so you get the taste and experience of Krishna's name, who's there in the form of his sound. Okay? So if you like, you can sit with your back, neck, and head erect in a straight line. And if you know the mantra already, then you can close your eyes even. Just concentrate on the sound vibration. Okay? So we'll do it together in unison. 1, 2, 3, go. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. A little more speed. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Pick up speed. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. Roll it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. Slow down. Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you so much. Pat yourselves on the back. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnana-shalakaya Chakshurumililamina Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance. My spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Srila Prabhupada ki. Hare Krishna. I'm going to read a section of the preface from the book Srimad Bhagavatam. Here it goes. We must know the present need of human society. And what is that need? Human society is no longer bounded by geographical limits to particular countries or communities. Human society is broader than in the Middle Ages, and the world tendency is toward one state or one human society. The ideals of spiritual communism, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, are based more or less on the oneness of the entire human society, nay, of the entire energy of living beings. The need is felt by great thinkers to make this a successful ideology. Srimad Bhagavatam will fill this need in human society. It begins, therefore, with an aphorism of Vedanta philosophy, Janmadishiyataha, to establish the ideal of a common cause. Human society, at the present moment, is not in the darkness of oblivion. It has made rapid progress in the fields of material comforts, education, and economic development throughout the entire world. But there is a pinprick somewhere in the social body at large, and therefore there are large-scale quarrels, even over less important issues. There is need of a clue as to how humanity can become one in peace, friendship, and prosperity with a common cause. Srimad Bhagavatam will fill this need, for it is a cultural presentation for the re-spiritualization of the entire human society. And this preface in full is written by A.C. Bhaktimarga Swami Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki. He ends up by saying Om Tat Sat. There's a little feedback there, and feedback only happens at Prashadam time. Okay, so if we can fix that, that'd be cool. Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Our usual Anjaniya Tirtha Guru, who establishes, who's going to give the talks on Sunday, he asked me what I would speak about. I told him, why don't we talk about Krishna in Alaska? And he said, okay, why not? Okay, why Alaska? Well, I'm going there tomorrow. Woo! And why Krishna? Well, Krishna is always there for us. And there's a lot of treasures in Alaska. And of course, I'm making a stopover in Vancouver, and then you take a drive to Seattle, and then you take Alaskan Airlines and fly up to Anchorage. That's the program, if anybody's interested. If you want to join me in the future, fantastic. We'll be up there to see the Aurora Borealis
the Northern Lights, hopefully, cross my fingers, cross my legs and everything else. And we'll be there to see a new group of people. Our idea, or what we learn from the culture of the Srimad Bhagavatam, is to share. So we don't have the center in Alaska, and the Canadian zone has been tagged on with the task of having Alaska to look after, as well as Minnesota, the 2 Dakotas, Montana, and Wyoming. So we're called Zone 1 in North America. Well, there's no inference that we're the top zone, but we are on top. If you look at a map, Canada is over the United States. Okay? But a piece of America is matched up with the territories of Canada. So our idea is to do what Srila Prabhupada wanted, and that is to share Krishna consciousness with the world, to change the consciousness from a me consciousness to a God consciousness, to look at the Creator, to look at the world in a bigger scale, and to not be so caught up in our little bubble. Most people that I meet are caught up in their bubble. They're in their own little world. It's all about me. But if we read the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a world which is beyond our own existence and experience, we can appreciate that there's a lot more than being about me. That's called egoism, isn't it? Or egotism. That means everything's centered around the body and the extensions of the body, the mind and the senses. But clearly, we are different. Even Krishna says, of the elements, Bhumir Apanavo Vayu, Kanmano Bhumir Evacha, that there are 8 major elements. That is earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. He says, Bina Prakritira Ashtada. Ashta means 8 elements, and they are my energies, but they are somewhat separated from me. Krishna in whole, in all his completedness, is spiritual power. But exuding from that, from his very being, are these energies. 8, there's 8, and there's many more. What Krishna is asking us to do is to see beyond and to realize that the self is more important than the body parts, and the senses, and the mind, etc. Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita, Indriyani Paramyahur, Indriya Param Manaha, Manasastu Parabudhir, Yogudi Paratastu Saha. And there he's giving an account, or he's giving us an idea, he's listing a hierarchy of ourselves. Okay? And the self sometimes is included with the body, the senses, and the mind, and so on like that. But the way the hierarchy goes is that there's the body and the senses, and then above it is the mind, and above that is the intelligence, the buddhi, and above that is the atma, the soul, which is what we actually are. So we have to somehow, if we want to see the bigger picture and get to a larger scale of understanding, we have to get our own identity right. And that is that I'm not this body, but I'm the spirit beyond the body. It starts with that. So anybody who reads the Srimad Bhagavatam, which I was just reading from, its preface, you'll realize that there's a large-scale world out there. And I met one gentleman on my second walk across Canada. This is in Saskatchewan. And he was in one of those, snazzy, souped-up pickup trucks. And he pulled over, and I was walking on the Trans-Canada Highway. He had his business suit on, and he looked pretty spiffy, if I might say. And he asked if I wanted to ride. And I said, well, I'm not taking any rides. I'm walking across the country. And he said, well, I understand you're a monk. I just want to let you know, I've been dabbling with Buddhism. But then sometimes my mind reverts to what I was raised in, which is Christianity. But I'm not sure about some of these different religious paths, because some of the stories are really far-fetched. They're really far out. And you mean like the story of the man who called for a big boat, and he had all the species of animals and creatures and aquatics coming into the ark, into the boat, and a male giraffe, a female giraffe, a male bear, a female bear, etc., etc. And then there was a big storm, and the people were wiped out because they were all corrupt. And then after everything settled, when the storm was over, the animals came back, because all the animals were left to also perish, and now they could repopulate the world. And so the fellow said, yeah, that story, and there's many other stories. I can't wrap my mind around them. They're just too out there. And then I said, sir, if you think those stories are far out, you should read our stories from the Vedas, the Srimad Bhagavatam. They are much deeper and much more far out than you could ever imagine. And I remember standing there, is that right? I said, you might consider them mythological stories, but within all myths, and myth is a word that's from the Sanskrit language, which means falsehood. But behind all falsehoods, there's truth. Behind every far-out story, truth is presented. And that is why we love these stories. And, behind, what is truth anyways? So many people want to get around hold of their children. Kids, you have to behave now. But I'm at a Sunday school, because it's not operating on Sundays or something like that. Okay, so the truth lies in something called bhakti. That's what I was explaining to the fellows. The traffic was going by. There's 4 lanes, traffic going this way, the traffic going the opposite way. And so the truth lies in something called bhakti, which means a deep devotion or love for the divine, for God. And he was listening very intently. It's just like that. So beyond what you consider a falsehood or truth is something that's even more deeply truthful, and that is something called bhakti. And it's a rendering of service to humanity, a rendering of service to the universe, to your neighborhood, to everything that's around you. Take care of what's around you. Take care of the earth. Take care of the other planets. And take care of yourself. What does it mean to take care of yourself? Well, okay, there's a hygienic consideration. Bathe once in a while. I love Krishna consciousness when I first joined, because you learn to take a bath or a shower the first thing when you get up. I said, hallelujah. That is wonderful. And it's super hot. And like on a summery day, I joined at 187 Gerrard Street. And it was a house. And we had 40 people living there. 40 hot, sweaty young people. And when the kirtan goes on, and we were stomping our feet on the floor, you could swear the floor will cave in and hit the bottom, the basement, where Prabhupada's books were stored. And so when it gets hot and sweaty, you're allowed to take a second shower in the day. Then it was okay. Hallelujah, once again. It was so, such a milestone for me to be in a culture where you're taking care of yourself, the exteriors, and also the interiors. Take care of yourself, which again, we expressed is the soul. And how you do that? Again, by bathing. How do you bathe the soul? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's a kind of a mental cleanse. It's a way of just getting yourself so cleaned up. And in this particular canto of the Bhagavatam, there's a great story about how Shiva did a major cleanse of the universe. Does anybody know the story of the churning of the ocean of milk? Are you familiar with it? It's the largest milkshake ever made. And it was a truce. It was let's say, teamwork by the asuras, that is the bad guys, and the good guys, the devatas. And they were churning this ocean of milk for what reason? To arouse, or to have merge the submerged Amrit. Amrit means nectar. It's like the fountain of youth. And those who are living kind of high off the hog in the universe, the demigods and the demons, they're always looking for opportunities to get richer in your sense gratification. So they were told there's Amrit in there, and if you drink it, you'll live for practically forever. So to get that Amrit, which was Vishnu's proposal, you have to work together like a team. And then Vishnu kind of whispered to the demigods and said, listen, these guys get like turned like children, and they get, we'll say, difficult, and they make demands. Just let them have what they want. Let them spoil brats have what they want, okay? Demigods went, okay, all right. So the churning of the ocean of milk went on, and first poison came out. Poison came, that was what came first. And it's like if you stir up in a swamp, water, or something like that, all the things that are down on the ground will come up on the surface. Some of them are kind of nasty. So the first thing that came was poison. And then, so what was to be done? Shiva appeared. And Shiva is generally known as the god of destruction. But here he seemed to be the god of salvation. And he took that poison and drank it. And he has what's called Nila Kanta. Nila means blue, Kanta means throat. He has a ring around, it's a permanent necklace. And that's the repository area of the poison that he drank, so that other people could thrive and live and flourish. And people would be poisoned. And who knows, maybe there's a story about an ark that would come later and save everyone. But anyways, it's like that. This Amrit is there, and it makes you practically immortal. And so there's a lot to be said about top-notch teamwork. There's a lot to be said about living a clean life and getting rid of the poisons within. We all have nasties within us. It's a fact. We all have negativity. We all have things from the past, especially, that we're harboring inside and which surface from time to time in the mind. And we don't want to be haunted by those negative experiences of the past. Have any of you had nightmares in the past? And do those nightmares sometimes haunt you and come back? Do they surface sometimes? Yes? We got some hands up there. And you don't want to, revisit those, but they nevertheless come. And somewhere or other, at some point in our life, we have to see those negative elements that have been part of our past and kind of just accept it and take shelter of that which will give us strength in order to stave off this negativity. And again, we resort to chanting this great mantra of deliverance, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And we will chant that mantra, and despite we chant that mantra with full surrender, or we feel we're surrendering, these little demons that are within, the bad dreams, tend to stay on for some time. Prabhupada was walking with some devotees in Boston, and they came by a window display where they were selling, toys for kids. And there was a display of G.I. Joes. Does anybody know what G.I. Joe is? Really? Anybody know what G.I. They're like militant men, ready to go out to war. And Swami Maharaj, one of Prabhupada's disciples, said, Prabhupada, these are images that we have been raised with. It's in our minds. And do you think they'll stay with us? And Prabhupada said, yes, they'll stay with you for some time. But there was an indication that they may leave you, and you can replace those images with something more positive. And that is G.I., like G for God. Krishna. Krishna can replace those images of G.I. Joes, and it takes a bit of work, though. If you want something valuable in life, something that's worth fighting for, then you have to work hard. It's not cheap. Krishna Bhakti is not cheap. It's not a cheap thing. It's very rich, it's very deep, and you have to fight hard for it. And those people who get into the practice of chanting japa, as we did a few minutes ago, they have to work very hard to keep their mind focused on that sound. And if the mind wanders, Krishna says, due to its unsteady nature, in Sanskrit it's called chanchalam, just somehow grab it and bring it back under the control of the self. Just like we do with naughty children. Okay, they go a little bit off course, and mom or dad has to go and grab them. How do you behave, son? Okay, and just bring things back under control. That's all it is. When things get asunder, then somehow or other we have to bring it back under some kind of control. So that's the practice of Bhakti Yoga. You are indeed becoming a kind of a soldier. I was raised Catholic, and I went through baptism, that's a sacrament. I went to First Communion, that's when you get the white chapati, and you get the priest offers it to you on your tongue. And then I went through confirmation, and that's another sacrament. And in confirmation, you confirm, I am a soldier of Christ. That I'll fight for him. I will fight for his cause. And of course, the cause of Jesus is to get clean, to change your consciousness, and to raise the consciousness, to take things up high, lofty, instead of down in the doldrums. Instead of the mind in the gutter, let the mind be not so beyond the clouds. Because everybody knows that saying, your head's in the clouds. That just means that everything's foggy, you're hazy, you're not seeing a clear picture. So you want to be above the clouds. The other day I did come from Edmonton, and the clouds I was looking down at way up in the sky, they were very beautiful, all billowy, like cotton-like and everything like that. And I knew that it's quite wonderful up there, above the clouds. And when I think of some like creatures, birds of prey, the eagle is known to be, to get way up there. Eagles and hawks can fly quite high. And yet they have incredible perception. They can see from very far something that's crawling around. Yummy, something. Swoop down, pick it up, and gobble it up. So, the idea is to get beyond our fogginess, and things like what you call certain stimuli, like substances and drugs, and even over-attention to sexual activities. As Krishna says, I am sex, which is not contrary to dharma, to religious principles. So our minds can become very messed up by all this overdose of materialistic activities. So somewhere or other we have to get beyond that and go into a clear territory. I remember walking across Ireland. Has anybody ever been to Ireland before? Any people here with Irish blood? It's proud blood. There's no problem there. Okay, so every day it rains in Ireland, and I realized I was with two brahmacharis and I said, Prabhus, are there any days when it doesn't rain in Ireland? And they just put their heads down. And one brahmachari said, he was from England, the UK, and he was saying that when he was going door to door to distribute Srimad Bhagavatam and similar literatures, he said, excuse me, ma'am, but I'm a monk. And the lady who answered the door interjected, said, well, what kind of a monk are you? And he says, I'm a wet monk. You know, because it was raining. I'm a wet monk. Now, so anyways, it took me 2 weeks to walk all of Ireland from Belfast down to Cork, which is the southernmost city where passengers for the Titanic were picked up last before they went with that fateful or infamous journey. So one day, like we stayed with an Indian gentleman at his place, and I woke up in the morning early because I like to walk early. And I went out into his apartment, and I opened the door, and I looked up and said, stars! I can see stars! And I yelled to the 2 brahmacharis, the monks that were still upstairs, like 2 or 3, hey, Prabhus, look, it's a clear day! So, you know, I don't need to put Irish weather down, because the people are wonderful, and everything's very green, and it is really a wonderful country. So the thing is that we just simply want to go and have a clear vision of what I should be doing with myself. And again, let's establish what is the self. I'm not this body, I'm the spirit within the body. And this is what I have to work at in order to have a clear brain and also have a good spirit. I have to do spiritual things. I have to do things that are lined up with bhakti, with devotion. Srila Prabhupada explains that there is no word like bhakti. There you cannot find an English equivalent to the word bhakti. But the best we can do, the best crack we can have at it is that it's intense love for the Supreme, for God. It's deep and it's not cheap. You know, those things that are deep are usually not cheap. And so it's something that has to be worked at. And it's been a great endeavor, just like we're going down Prasadam soon. And I'm assuming it's going to be scrumptious. You know, the people who put that together, those heroes that come on a hot summer day like today and work over the fire, they're superheroes as far as I'm concerned. They put a lot of energy into it, so that everyone can satisfy their tongues. Maybe we should take a second to thank our cooks for the day. And for the devotees who look after the deities and who keep the place clean, and just keep a sense of order in the temple and a sense of order in life, and to be good examples for others. What we really need in the world right now is good examples. And Francis of Assisi, he did say this, he was a great saint, recognized worldwide. He said that, preach, and if you have to, use some words. In other words, be a preceptor by your example, by what you do, not by Hare Krishna, surrender to the Lord, rub it in their face, turn into a pirate. No, because people are going to be inspired by how you behave well, by your mannerisms. And people are going to be looking at you. Take it from me, like when you wear these kind of clothes, you go to public, people usually have a second look, especially if they're walking in a small town. Did I see what I just saw? And I might play a little game with them. While they turn their head, I'll turn my head too. Yeah, you saw what you saw. But the clothes simply represent something more than what meets the eye. It stands for renunciation. And I get people, they come to me and they say, why that color? Why that color? I said, well, it's a welcoming color, it's very peaceful color. It's meant for those persons who control their senses and are trying to get very close to God. That's the kind of answer I would give to them. Yeah. And they like it. Yeah, okay, far out. I had one fellow, this was in, just outside of Vancouver when I was on one of my walks, and he was riding a bicycle. And I'm trying to think of the name, it's near Chilliwack. And it was in the downtown area. And he pulled over and said, "Hey, man, why can't I get a set of clothes like that?" Okay. So, but the externals aren't so important. It's the internal that really resonates and makes a difference. So we're just suggesting to you all that through fantastic and awesome behavior, we can make a difference in the world and try to come to the point where that ideology of the oneness in the world could be realized. We do want the world to be one, one in consciousness, and not be so divided. Like there's something that troubles me terribly when people have different belief systems. And this says, "I can't believe in your religion, I'm from..." There was this one man in Saskatchewan, we're going to Saskatchewan again, this is my first one. And he was a trucker and he was carrying barley. He actually looked more like a farmer than a trucker. And what does a trucker look like? Well, we can talk about that a little bit later on, if you want to get my take on it. But, he said he had some mechanical problems. And he stopped by the road and he saw me coming. And I said, "I heard you're walking across the country." One of my colleagues, he told me on the walkie-talkie, that's when people are walkie-talkies. He said, "You're walking across this country, what are you doing it for?" They said, "It's sort of spiritual healing of the nation." I gave him a brochure. He starts reading it right there as traffic is in the room. He said, "Yeah, but you believe in a different God." And I do. He said, "Excuse me, sir, there's only one God. There's one sun that shines above all of us. There's one moon that we're familiar with. There's one earth that we're familiar with, etc., etc. So when it comes to God, there's one God. Might be known by different names and by different aspects, but there's one God." So I don't know if he accepted it, but we left it at that. And finally, my last little story. I was in New Jersey. And it was a beautiful fall day. The colors were out, and I was walking there. 4 of us walking, chanting japa on one side of the road with our beads. It was a Sunday morning, the sun was shining, and the autumn leaves were shining as well. And to some extent, I thought we were shining. And then we saw another group of people coming on the other side of the road, and they were sort of rubbing their fingers on the rosary, which is what Catholics do, So we're kind of looking at each other, "Hey, what are you doing? Hey, what are you doing?" Well, we're doing the same thing. So our smaller group, we were in the minority, so we went over to where there was at least about 12 to 20 people chanting out their rosaries, and we just exchanged ideas and said we're chanting for our own purifications, and we're praying for people who need help. And they said, "Well, I guess it's kind of the same thing." And the one woman, she was kind of tall, she's kind of the spokesperson, said, "Oh well, it's all the same God." And then Bill Mary will praise God. She went on like that. And what a nice ending it was. What a nice realization it was that there's one God, right? Known by different names. So you have to ask, why are we fighting, for God's sake? Why? Why do we have to demonstrate being such idiots? Why can't we get onto the commonality and recognize how there's a oneness and not all the difference? And if there is a difference, I guess there is a difference. I've got a garden here. There's orange flowers, there's pink flowers, there's white flowers. There's anything else? I think there's some green in here too. All the colors are just fantastic. Doesn't it look pretty?
Yeah.
Doesn't it look nice? Just a combination. They complement each other. That's why. So let us complement each other. And that's why it's amazing. I just want to remind everyone that the registration is on for the Mantra Retreat, which I'm very much a part of. I'm one of the founding fathers of the men's retreat, which is now in its 5th year, and we'll physically come together and we'll do bhakti things together. That's what we'll do. So if you're interested in the details, 2nd weekend of September, and we're going to bring our play there. We're going to entertain and educate and all those things. So thank you very much. Announcements to be made. We're just going to toss this out randomly, and whoever gets it, whoever catches it, I guess. I really should be spun around with my eyes closed, but whoever gets it, they're getting some mercy. Okay? I will spin it around like this.
There you go. So thank you so much, Maharaj, for the wonderful session. As I was telling, those tales from the trails are so transcendental, and he was narrating some of those episodes. If you want to know more about those tales, then Maharaj has also authored a book called The Saffron Path. You can take that book and you can enjoy it, you can relish that. Also, we just wanted to say, if there are any last questions, can we have these questions? Anyone? We don't have much time, but maybe 1 or 2 questions. Anyone? All right. Everyone's hungry, yes. So that's there. We also want to say, okay, you have a question, maybe you can ask first, then you can Maharaj. Jivan Gandhu, one of the very known